Good evening. When Mark asked me to do this, he said he wanted to save the best for last, and he wanted me to go first. So this is me. President Obama has two things I could use tonight. He has a speechwriter and a teleprompter, and I don't have either one. So bear with me, please. Dr. Faye B. Eagles Volunteer of the Year Award is given each year for service to the Nash County Republican Party. It is given in memory of a lady who was well respected and honored in her profession. She was a doctor of chiropractic, and in the local, state, and national Republican Party. She was appointed by President Nixon to the White House Conference on Aging. She served as a delegate to the state GOP convention and as an alternate delegate to the national convention. She was a member of the North Carolina GOP Executive Committee, the North Carolina GOP State Central Committee. She was chairman of the 2nd District and a 2nd District presidential elector. She made a nomination speech for President George H.W. Bush for North Carolina. She received the Order of the Longleaf Pine from both Governors Holshouser and Martin. Dr. Eagles was instrumental in the rise of the Republican Party in Rocky Mount and Nash County. She was also involved in many civic activities. She often stated, sometimes the best man for the job is a woman. She influenced many people to get involved in politics, including myself. This year's recipient worked tirelessly to help ensure the election of conservative Republican candidates to local and state offices, as well as United States House and Senate. Not only did they do anything they were asked to do, they found ways to go beyond the expected. Anytime I went to our headquarters, they were there. When I went to the early voting sites, they were there. They continued to work during election day. They worked the phones, signed up volunteers, got out literature, helped keep headquarters running, helping with get the signs put up, talking with potential voters. If there was something they weren't involved in, I have no idea what it was. All of this was done with a sense of humor and a passion for conservative values. Her greatest accomplishment was making me do what I needed to do and putting up with my sarcasm. The recipient of the 2010 Dr. Faye B. Eagles Volunteer of the Year Award is Yvonne McLeod.
Thank you, Yvonne. And thank you, Bruce. Many of you did go to the headquarters, you know how well deserved that award is. Amen. On each of your tables, and if it's not on your table, there should be one of the neighboring tables, is a green sheet. Looks like this. Hopefully it hasn't got thrown away. Once again, if one on your table has been thrown away, that's okay. Find one neighboring. What this is for is, as many of you know, this county convention elects delegates to represent Nash County at the district conventions and at the state convention. We have a little quirk in things this year in that we normally have county conventions in March, district conventions during April, and the state convention in June. As you'll see in the program, the date and the location have been set for the state convention. It's in June. If you are here and are Nash County Republican, you have been duly registered, and your name will be sent as a delegate to the state, and so you are free, or you're able to go and attend the state convention as a delegate, a voting delegate from Nash County. Those obviously that aren't from Nash County and aren't Republicans, your name will not be submitted since you're not eligible. But then anyone who is not present tonight that you think would be interested in going as a delegate to either the district convention or state convention, please put their name on this list. They're not obligated to go, but without their name on this list, they cannot go. So if you have any idea that they may be interested, please put their name on the list. When we finish, after the speaker speaks tonight, and we vote on the delegates, I'll ask for those green sheets to be passed forward so that we can vote on those names that you put on that sheet as delegates to the district and to the state. The district conventions will not be held in the April period now because Senator Newton and Senator Collins have to do a little work, and Speaker Tillis have to do a little work and draw our district lines for us. We don't know where the 2nd district or the 3rd district or the 1st district is right now. Nash County is split between those 3 congressional districts. And so our state party could not proceed with the state party function of having district meetings until our legislature sets the district lines. So that's a little quirk. But once again, please add names to this list of anyone that you think might be interested in attending. In addition to Yvonne, a lot of you did a lot of work last fall to get some Republicans elected, and we are so proud and excited to have 2 Republicans representing us in the House, in House District 25, and in the Senate District 11. I'm grateful for their presence tonight. And before we hear from our speaker, I'll ask for both Senator Newton and Representative Collins to come and speak a word to you.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to try to put this back in the stand because I hate trying to hold the microphone. The only time that's worked for me is on the Senate floor. It's still awkward. Thank you for having me tonight. I would not have thought for a minute about missing it. Basketball games notwithstanding, weather notwithstanding, it is definitely my pleasure to be here back in Nash County again. Yvonne, where are you sitting? There you are. Jeff and I were looking at each other when Mark was reading off all the things that you did, and every time he said something, I said, that sounds like Yvonne. That sounds like Yvonne. For the candidate, this is one of the most well-deserved awards that I can imagine. She was everywhere. She was everywhere I wasn't, and she was everywhere I was. So, you know, I think she did more to get me and Jeff elected than I did. So, thank you, Yvonne, for all that you've done, and I hope you'll continue to be the inspiration that you are to others in this room and others in this county. Let me just briefly say that a few things is wonderful to see. I see so many friends in the room and acquaintances from the campaign trail, and I'm sorry I arrived a little late, so I didn't get to greet everyone, and I hope to get to speak to you and talk to you more either tonight or later on. I'll be at the Rotary Club in Rocky Mount on Monday. Hopefully I see the Shaws will be there, and hopefully some others will be there. I'll get to talk to you then. And I've been looking forward to the pork chops and the barbecue chicken since about this time last year. Momar Rotary Club always does a wonderful job. What is it like in the legislature? I keep getting asked that question. Is it anything like you thought it was going to be? If I've been asked that one time, I've been asked that 1,000 times. And that's normal that people would ask me that. And candidly, for the most part, it's pretty much what I expected it to be. Except for a few things. It is fast. We have started off at a full, we're moving at light speed. My LA was in the office 2 weeks before we even started the session working. I was meeting with folks and having meetings throughout the district for at least 2 weeks before we started. We've only been at this about 6 weeks, isn't that right, Tom? And you know, it's usually 2 or 3 weeks, so I understood before the senators and the representatives even knew where their offices were. We have just started gangbusters, and I love it, because I heard Speaker Tillis say today at a caucus meeting that we were going to be home, hopefully in June. And I said, praise the Lord. My law practice will survive. Because I'm not making a lot of money right now. I'm working in Raleigh. That's my volunteer job. And And so anyway, I'm very happy to hear that. So let me touch on a few things that we've done in the Senate. And I'm very proud about the work that I've been able to do with the majority in the Senate. We've passed quite a number of bills and sent over to Jeff and Speaker Tillis to deal with. And many of you have heard about the charter school cap being lifted. That was one of the first things that we did. One of the other first bills that we did was House Bill 2, which I'm sure Jeff will talk about later, and that's the Healthcare Freedom Act. I was particularly pleased with the passage of our Castle Doctrine bill. Thank you. For those who don't know, that is a further enhancement of and clarifying your right to self-defense when someone invades your home, and because of my amendment, invade your car or your workplace. Many of you may recall that I represented a gentleman from a shooting in Rocky Mount, vegetable stand down in downtown Rocky Mount. His name was Joshua Moore, and he and his wife were in this vegetable stand and were being robbed, and he shot and killed the robber, and our DA at the time felt like that wasn't right, and so that particular issue, I had to carry that case to the Supreme Court. We finally won, and he's a free citizen today, and that really sunk into me that we needed to do something about that. So I'm very pleased about that, and I think it will be taken up probably pretty soon in the House, and they're going to put their stamp on it, and we'll have a Castle Doctrine enhancement in North Carolina. I have filed a bill to increase the penalty for second-degree murder. This is, for those who aren't lawyers, that's important because there's a big gap actually between first-degree and second-degree murder, and it presents a lot of problems for prosecuting cases. And the DAs wanted it, and I'm hoping we'll be hearing that and moving that along soon. But the one I'm most proud of is that in the Senate we passed an annexation moratorium. All my friends from Oak Level that worked so hard for me in the campaign, and I wanted them to know that that's near and dear to my heart. And I had some conversations with Speaker Tillis today about this issue, and hopefully we're going to get that one way or the other. We're going to get a reform bill on annexation reform, hopefully here in the next month or so before we get too far down the road. And so I'm very pleased about that we were able to get that done. But, those are just a few of the things that we've done. We have a lot of things to do, and I don't want to talk about all of it because I know Jeff wants to talk about it, and I know you want to hear what Speaker Tillis has to say about all the things we're doing. But let me just say this. We're just getting started. We're just getting started. We're only 6 weeks into this, and we are going to change North Carolina. And thank you again for having me.
Doug and I had a lot of fun on the campaign trail together, and so let me just talk about a couple things that have already been mentioned. I love Ronald Reagan. I've told people I really had three political heroes growing up as a young conservative person here in Eastern North Carolina. My national hero was Ronald Reagan, my state level hero was Jesse Helms, and my local hero was Jim Gardner. And I actually had an opportunity to have my local hero come out of retirement and work for my campaign this year, which was a big thrill for me. But Ronald Reagan said so many quotable things. One of my favorite quotes from him is the quote that he said, he knew his economic policy was working when the press quit calling it Reaganomics. And I thought that was just a tremendous quote from him. It sounds like something our speaker would say almost, because he has a good sense of humor too. Yvonne, congratulations. Like Buck said, halfway through that thing, I leaned over and said, that has to be Yvonne. He said, yeah, it's got to be. Buck and Beanie, my wife, and I got in Roger Taylor's truck with Lige Daughtridge's big sign in the back that said Collins for House on it on election day, and rode around to all 20 polling places that were in my district in Nash County, which were all within Buck's district. He rode around with us that day, and we stopped and talked to people at all polling places. And we found Yvonne working at 3 different ones as we got around the route that day. So I don't know how that happened, but anyway, we saw her everywhere from Rocky Mount to Castaic to Stanhope, I think. And I could thank others of you in here too. I see a lot of people who worked awful hard on my campaign. I'd really like to thank all of you for that. I wasn't a politician when this thing started, probably still not much of one. I think I tend to be kind of too out front with what I think and what I believe and how I'm going to vote and everything else. We'll see whether that works when re-election time comes up or not. I guess it depends on how many people agree with my positions. But I did, as I said before we got started, I did go to Raleigh to represent a lot of people who I think have been underrepresented in the last few years. I went to represent taxpayers. I went to represent job creators. I went to represent law-abiding citizens. I went to represent all people, regardless of race, color, creed, or whatever, who are trying to work hard to improve their lot, to improve their family's lot in North Carolina. And that's still the people that I'm up there to represent. I got a good group of people up there who are working hard for the same thing, both in the House and the Senate. I'm really happy to see that. It's often been said, and our governor said this when she was making a statement to the press earlier after she had made a speech to us, mentioning the fact that for the most part the General Assembly was composed of people who were independently wealthy or retired. And I think that probably used to be the case in a lot of cases. But I can tell you, of the 23 freshman House people I've met, over half of them are business owners like me, just small business people. And that culture, I think, is changing. As far as what we're doing, I think today, you probably read into the calendar, I think up to about House Bill 294 or something like that, I think is about where we are. In 7 weeks, if that gives you any idea. I mean, people will call me sometimes and say, well, what about the House Bill 154? And I say, I don't know, tell me what's in it. If it hasn't come to one of my committees or it hasn't been read to the, if it hasn't come to the floor yet, I probably haven't even heard about it, haven't had time to think about it yet. I can't, I've got so many bills of master rule on every day, I can't keep up with the ones that hadn't gotten here yet. But we're going at a rapid pace. You figure if you have been a Republican legislator for 4 years before in the House like Tom, or 20-some years like some of our folks, they've had all this pent-up legislation waiting to get out for years and years and years, and it is flying out of the conduits as fast as they get them on the floor. So it's like Buck said, we're working 100 miles an hour. We're working on, I think it's impossible almost if you're a Republican to do what some people want us to do, and that is to have a jobs bill. Now, you know why it's impossible to do almost if you're a Republican? Because we realize that the government does not create jobs. Innovators create jobs. Entrepreneurs create jobs. Government can do a lot to destroy jobs, but government really doesn't do much with the creation of jobs. We need to get out of the way and let people create jobs. But we're doing some things on that front. I think we passed what to me was a great jobs bill today that had been sent over from the Senate, Senate Bill 22. It's coming about as close as we can to putting a screeching halt or a moratorium on rulemaking for a while by the agencies that are keeping businesses from coming to North Carolina. We're doing a lot of things behind the scenes too, though. If you really want to get serious about bringing jobs to North Carolina, you have to do a lot of things that don't make the newspaper. I got invited by Majority Leader Skip Stam and Speaker Tillis, along with some other legislators a couple of weeks ago, to go to a meeting in a law office somewhere on Glenwood Avenue north of Crabtree Valley. And we were there sitting around the table with recruiters, with business recruiters from all over the state, from the east part of the state, middle part of the state, western part of the state, people whose jobs it is to bring businesses into North Carolina for their counties. And we were in video conference with 2 other groups in Charlotte and Greensboro. And what they did was give us a checklist. These are the things we need in order to bring businesses to North Carolina. And one of the major things that occurred over and over and over throughout that list was less onerous regulation. We can't bring people to North Carolina because of the regulations that they're going against. They gave us one example of a company that wanted to locate somewhere down on the coast, and they needed to get their product out to the port there. And so they noticed a dirt road, led basically the path they needed to go, and so they said, well, we'll just work on that road and widen it. No, Diener says, no, you can't touch that road. So they noticed there were 2 canals, 2 parallel canals they could have used to get to the port. No, you can't dredge those canals, you can't touch those canals. So they finally came up with the idea, well, there's a marsh that leads out to where we need to go. We'll just build a pier out far enough to where we can get a boat to it. No, you can't put a pier out there. The pier will shade the marsh. Well, trees on the bank shade the marsh. What are we going to do? Cut all the trees down? And not only that, we're not sure, but there might be a red-headed woodpecker out there somewhere in that marsh. Folks, that's the kind of rationale we have keeping jobs out of North Carolina. And that's the kind of mentality we're trying to change and stop in North Carolina. Again, there's so many other bills. A lot of you are aware I've got a local bill, House Bill 56, trying to help my friends out at local level who I believe have been grossly misrepresented. Even the map of the area is a gross misrepresentation. I don't know if any judge will take the time to come down here or not, but when you see a map of that land and not one speck of it is labeled farmland, something's wrong with the map. You know, I drive between Rocky Mountain and Nashville on Sunset Avenue a lot of times, and there's a lot of farmland I see out there. So anyway, we're if all else fails, I'm trying to put a halt to that one itself. So we'll be hearing that in Government Committee next Thursday. But we're doing a lot of things on a lot of fronts. We're trying to change the mentality. I've seen from bills that come up what the mentality is. We kept one area up in the mountains somewhere from being recoded just last week because although there was nothing wrong, there was a creek on this land, and although none of the landowners had done anything, everybody agreed the waters were pristine and had been taken care of. This area had been taken care of for generations by the people who lived there. Somebody was going to recodify that land so that they couldn't do what they wanted to with a big part of it along the creek banks, just so that it might not mess up trout stream fishing downstream from them. And I got to thinking about it. You know, the only people I know of who are considered guilty until proven innocent are property owners. A lot of times by people in Raleigh. So we've got to change that mentality. It is changing. We're getting a lot of resistance from it. We have to listen to a lot of sermonizing every time we try to change the mentality in Raleigh. I don't know how many times I've been told that I'm not a good American, I'm not a very good North Carolinian, I've broken my oath to the state constitution, I'm not a very good Christian, should be ashamed when I go to church. All because I'm standing up for these things I've told you tonight. I haven't heard any of us say that about people who disagree with us on the other side. But anyway, we're there to stand firm for you. Any issues you come up with, talk to me about it. I mean, I'm real easy to find. If you come looking for my office, if you walk into the legislative building across the great seal of North Carolina and come in the front door, I'm the third office on your right. A lot of you already know where I am and appreciate the visits that we've had so far. I'm going to stop talking there because, like I say, with 290-some bills we're dealing with, I could talk to you all night about legislation that's ongoing, but I'm going to introduce someone that I'd rather hear you listen to and I'd rather listen to, and that's my speaker, Tom Tillis. I met Tom in an interesting way. A fellow named Skip Stam, who, along with Tom Tillis, had headed up the North Carolina House Majority Caucus back when North Carolina did not have the North Carolina GOP House Majority Caucus. Back when North Carolina did not have a GOP House majority. But they had a vision for that. These two fellows were out recruiting people to run all over the state. And a fellow that I didn't know named Skip Stam called me one day, and he was going to be on his way from Raleigh to Warrenton to speak to some civic group, and I was on my way from my satellite office in Henderson to Rocky Mountain, so we met at the Remington Grill in Lewisburg. And he sat down and kind of told me that I'd been recommended to him and why I should run for the House, and here's kind of how it works, and here's the days you work, and here's the pay, and all that kind of stuff. And for some reason or other, I made a mistake of not telling him no. I didn't tell him yes either. I just told him I'd take it under consideration. Well, less than a week later, three guys in suits that looked kind of like FBI agents or Secret Service people or something showed up in my office. It was Tom Tillis and two guys named Mike that worked at the House, at the state GOP office. And I wondered at first if somebody in my office was going to be accused of securities fraud or something, but they told me what they were there for, and I listened some more. And despite my wife thinking that I was crazy at the time, that's how it all got started for me. So Tom has a special place in my heart because he's one of the ones that actually got me to run in the first place. Still don't have any idea why. Tom's an interesting guy, and he puts a fresh perspective in the House. Tom's a business guy. I think that's why we get along so well. Tom was an employee of IBM, and maybe one day will be an employee of somebody again. Right now he's working full-time for us, and I can tell you he's made a tremendous sacrifice, not only to get the GOP in the majority in the House, but then to lead us through this new majority changeover. But Tom worked at IBM. He was in charge of U.S. management and consulting practices and banking, so he knows what he's doing. He's from Mecklenburg County, so he's from a little bit more financially congested and population congested area than we are. Been married to his wife Susan for 24 years. They have a daughter at community college and a son at American University. like I say, Tom has been successful not only as leader of the House Majority Caucus, but now as Speaker of the House. Let me just tell you one story that kind of, I think, epitomizes the way he does things. And this is, I doubt this got reported in the N&O. I haven't seen it. But Tom put together a crack staff involving our own Bill Daltrich, who was a big help to me during my campaign, and some other fine people. And they decided they were going to go ahead and get things rolling so that when we got to January 26th, first day of session, we were actually going to be working that day. They were going to have not only committee assignments done by that time, which is unheard of, but they were also going to have everybody in their permanent offices by that time, which was also unheard of. Well, the last Speaker of the House was kind of squatting in the Speaker's office and not making much of a move to move. And a lot of the other folks weren't making much of a move to move out of their past offices into their future offices. And so finally the word went out that, you know, we're going to get this thing moved. And there was a lot of bucking, oh, well, you know, you can't do that. You'll have to have all these state employees working overtime and it'll just be real expensive. And you know, it can take up to 3 weeks to do it. Well, Tom finally got the ultimatum and said, we're going to have this done by the end of the week. And if you haven't, you know, moved your personal belongings out of your old office, you can find them in a box out in the hall outside your office this Friday. And got one of our guys who apparently knows someone in the Department of Corrections to get 15 prisoners over and had everybody's offices moved in 2 days. Those prisoners make $1 a day, so for the total cost of $30, got all the offices moved. Now, you know, I'm a financial guy by trade, so you know why I love this guy anyway. But I can tell you, that's the way we run the house. I like it that way. But Tom's also a guy of great integrity. He did something just this afternoon, which I think has shown people that we're going to work differently as a house. We actually, through a unique set of circumstances, had an opportunity, if we had been willing to compromise our integrity and not keep our word, we would have had an opportunity to ram House Bill 2 through and override the veto this afternoon. If we had been willing to compromise our principles and really basically lie about what we were doing this afternoon. But we weren't doing that. We did bring the bill up so it could be reintroduced and kind of put the other side on guard that if our governor continues to veto bills, they're going to have everybody at every session every day, every minute of every day. But Tom wouldn't compromise our principles, even though we feel like that's a result we'd like to see happen. So I appreciate that about it as much as anything. So without further ado, I'd like for my speaker and our friend here in North Carolina, Tom Tillis.